Someone in the Discord server was like, hey, what if somebody went ahead and live streamed the process of making a map? Well, I would do that myself if it weren't for the fact that most people are active before I am. I'd prefer to have an audience of some sort if I'm going to go live, you know? But the idea of showing the level making process seemed like a fun concept, so I thought I'd make a small video on it instead of a live stream. So, step number one is pretty straightforward. You just need some sort of inspiration. Sometimes I look through model railroaders, sometimes I just do something on the spot, but for this video I'm going to look at openrailwaymap.org. This site is an amazing place to get inspiration and gather information on real locations. The hardest part of this process is finding a unique location. Most commuter, metro, and light rail systems are kinda just straight lines and not all that interesting to actually play. While it's efficient for real railroads, it doesn't really make for fun maps. It's best to try and find a junction of some sort that stands out to you. The location that I personally found was Brightline's Miami Central. At a first glance, it's just a normal old terminus station, but the fact is the throat into the station is very long. There are 3 tracks leading into the station, but there are no crossovers near the station. Each track leads to its own set of platforms, and I found that pretty interesting. Plus, the Florida East Coast's Port Branch runs alongside the route. Actually, it doesn't just run alongside it, the route also converges at the end of the throat. The rest of the route before the next junction on the line is kind of dull. It's mostly just double track with one interesting oddball passing siding in the middle of nowhere. But there aren't really any stations to bloat the schedule, which is nice. A train going to Miami Central isn't going to need to stop several times. At the end of this double track section is the Little River Y. Effectively, this is where the Florida East Coast goes into its yards and Brightline goes into its station. While it'll definitely make the level a bit small and simple, I think this is a reasonable point to stop building at. Miami as a whole could be a really fun map to make considering its crazy track arrangements, but I'm not trying to make an insane level. I'm just trying to make something simple and quick for a video. Now that we've determined our location, let's start working on the actual map. The process is actually pretty simple. You just build the map. The selection of junctions in the game is a little bit limited, but you can rotate them 90 degrees or flip them 180 degrees as many times as you'd like to make as many wild combinations as you'd like. It's not really a big limiting factor, but it is something to keep in mind as you build your map. Use autoblocks to condense large segments of track, and remember to add signals at reasonable locations. Sprinkle in some various wall patterns to add a little bit of texture, and presto, you're done. Well, okay, you're done with the track arrangement at least. Now for the fun, and admittedly difficult part, timetabling. The first thing you want to do is get your first train scheduled. Now that you have its route written down, it's time to start figuring out how long it's going to take to get from point A to point B. If your track layout has a ton of speed changes, it might be worth considering using the trial train tool. If you don't have any speed changes, however, which this map does not, you can probably get away with a simple math equation. See, distance over time is speed. But we already know the speed. We want to get the time. In order to do that, we need to figure out the distance. Since every tile is consistent in length, you can either eyeball it or get a precise calculation done. However you determine the distance, we then divide it by the speed. In order to get the speed per minute, you just divide the speed per hour by 60. After all, there are 60 minutes to an hour, right? Now that we have the speed, we simply divide the distance by it. However, this time assumes that the train is constantly going at its top speed and is able to instantly start and stop. Trains, they don't do that. In order to avoid any acceleration or deceleration problems, and also make it so a slight mess up on the player's part won't completely kill a run, let's add 1 minute to the schedule and round up. And presto, that is the approximate time that this train will take to get from point A to point B. Now just do that like 50 times. Good luck. I love timetabling, but honestly, it is such a pain some days. It gets kind of repetitive. But the end result? Oh boy, that is 100% worthwhile. After this, everything is pretty straightforward. Just test the level a couple of times to make sure that it is, in fact, possible. Set the max score, get a nice thumbnail, and upload it to the workshop. And just like that, you've made a timetable map. Well, okay, that's not entirely true. You probably just watched a video about me making a timetable map and showing you the process. I haven't told you anything about how to use the editor. If you'd like to learn to use the editor, check the description. I've linked a Steam guide that explains the basics. And with that, we're done here today. Cheers, folks.